Okay, I have an update on the ants infecting my pepper and jalapeno with some kind of black fly or aphid or something, some sticky aphid that they were moving around the plant farming. So I did more detailed, I don't know if I can get this, I did more detailed search, and they did actually infect the pepper plants with these aphids, these little aphids, and then they were moving them around. Now you may think, oh well, the plants were already, sick and they just were opportunistic, but no, they actually, because I was observing the ants' behaviour, and what they did is they actually were moving them around, and these ones were grown in turmeric container, and they're totally free of any kind of pest or anything. But I made the mistake of isolating some pepper on the balcony, and it just so happened the ants came in en masse, found it, and they infected the plants with these fucking aphids. And then they moved, and so the problem with the water, trying to get them off, once that happens, it's really a nightmare, because they make a little webs, and then if there's any water, they it just runs off. It's just some sticky substance that is waterproof, and then the ants were fitting them into the head of they weren't only in the leaves, the ants wanted them on the flower heads, so that was where they were going for whatever sticky substance was being produced, and they kept them in there. If you removed them, they put them back. So the ants, I didn't recognise this earlier. I've always been losing my pepper plants in the garden, and now I know why. And the whole point is, if it gets to the point where the ants infect like the plants with their little farming techniques, it's just a nightmare to get them off, and you don't want to use chemical or poison on your food. And so now I would say, I was talking about controlling your growing environment, or controlling the environment. You absolutely have to have a way to plant your peppers in a way that the ants won't move in. You have to stop them coming in and doing that, and not get to the point where you have to spend the rest of your life fighting aphids and black fly and whatever fungus and anything else on your food plants. So here it was successful, perfectly healthy. Companion planting is one way. Find a plant that the ants don't like, or find an environment they don't like, or create an environment they don't like, but just don't let them get to the stage where they're introducing and moving around fungus or aphids or any kind of disease that they then farm on the plants. And once your plants have been infected, I would say it's too late, simply because you don't want, or I don't want, poison in my food, and I don't want to spend hours or days or weeks or months fighting ants and aphids. So I would say the human has to create a beneficial natural hybrid environment that is going to produce the food or the herbs or the trees that they plant, and that will naturally stop any kind of intrusion, simply because nature has an advantage over us. Nature, in that sense, unless we control the the growing environment, nature just overwhelm us. So I've learned my lesson, but I've also, strangely, I had 2 lessons in 1 year in 2019. I had the success where I was instinctively planted the pepper in the turmeric ginger grow bags, and then up on the balcony I saw how the ants, in an environment that suits them, because they just like to run along a little piece of stone and, you know, make their little farm and then run back to the nest. So then they overwhelm us. But if I was doing that again, I would just simply create an environment, even if I was doing on the balcony, where ants will not even enter. And so that's another aspect that I mean about controlled environment. Don't get to the point where you're going to be battling nature once something has infested your plants.